Welcome, children of God, to my channel, Lady of Victory Ministries. My name is Laura. I just want to welcome you to my channel, and I especially want to send warm welcomes if you're brand new to this channel and you just started following me. You're still early in the game, so you don't have too much far to catch up, but this story that I'm about to release is the pivotal one. This is the trauma testimony. This is the testimony that has been sitting on me for a while. It's a very, very heavy word. And this is what basically changed the trajectory of my life and, how I ended up where I am today. So I do apologize for the delay in releasing this word. I know it's been a few weeks, but I had to get in the right headspace to deliver this. I can't promise that I won't cry. I'm going to try really, really hard not to cry. But it's that word. The testimony that changed my life forever. So that's, I had to get in the right mental capacity to release this. So I do apologize for the delay, but I'm ready now. I'm ready to release this word to you all. And I hope it brings, some clarity to you on the future words that I release and the testimonies that I release following this over like the decisions and, in my life and the courses of action that I took. Because it ain't pretty. It's not pretty, There was the Laura that was before the trauma happened, basically lived a privileged life, and I'm going to just dabble into that for just a second. And then right after the trauma happened and where I became like a horrible human being, and then basically God saving me from myself after many years of living in that trauma state. So, roughly 6-7 years of living in that trauma state. And I'm still healing from a lot of this. I still have a lot of active triggers and things that God is working through me. So before I get into what happened, I'm going to paint a picture of you of Laura before. So before I was 22, I grew up in a very privileged home. Both parents married. They were married for 23 years and lived in a suburban neighborhood. Went to a Christian school. We didn't go to public school. It was a private Christian school. We went to church every Sunday. It was me and my sister. We're siblings. And we grew up very... in a family environment where we got together for everything. Every holiday you could think of, we'd get together at either my aunt's or my grandma's house, and we'd have a family cookout or gathering or something for everything. Every little thing you can imagine. Our family was so close. This was my mom's side, my maternal side, I should clarify. We were extremely close, and those is just like the good old days. It's just like I have very fond memories of those days. We lived in a suburban neighborhood up until I was 13. And then from 13 on, we moved only a mile away, but we weren't in a suburban neighborhood anymore. We had land. I believe it was almost 2 acres. I had chickens, much bigger house, had the dream life, had go-karts on the land, and, there was farmland across the street that they would let us when, there was no crops. We would go over there with our go-kart, and I was popular in school. Not the mean girl popular. I was popular in that, I got along with everybody. Everybody was my friend. I just had that bubbly spirit. I just loved people in general. So I got along with everybody. I was a cheerleader, captain of the cheerleading squad in both junior high and high school. In my previous word, I said that I dated the same guy from kindergarten until 2 years after I graduated high school. He was the basketball guy. He wasn't the basketball star, but he definitely was one of the best basketball players. I was homecoming queen my senior year. I was a good girl. I was a very good girl. I was according to the world, I've been a prude. I was not sexually active in school whatsoever. I didn't have straight A's, but I was smart, A's and B's. I would be crying my eyes out or think the world was ending if I got a C. And that was my world. Cheerleading was my life. I ate, slept, breathed cheerleading. I loved cheerleading. And that was my world. I was a good girl. I did not break the rules. I followed the rules. I did what my mom and dad told me to do. I didn't ruffle feathers. But I was fun. I was fun loving. I was one of the girls in my class who would always throw the parties, but they were like, no drinking. My parents were there, but it was like fun. Like people loved to come to our house. We were that house where friends were always coming and going. They loved my mom. My mom was so funny. And my dad would take me and my friends to go toilet papering. Like my dad would go with us to go shopping, to go get the toilet paper. I lived a very fun life growing up. So if that kind of paints a picture for you, I mean, literally the only bad thing or traumatic thing, if you could say, that happened to me was I was bullied in junior high because I went through an awkward phase, and I was still the nice, sweet, bubbly girl. There was a group of mean girls. I think about 5 of them. A group of mean girls who were just mean and hateful, and they bullied me in junior high. But up until I was 22 years old, that was the worst thing I had to experience. I mean, I lived a very fortunate life. So I miss those days. I miss those days because, woo, boy, did life change. So I went to college. I got 2 degrees. So the first degree my parents paid for. The second degree, my father was a professor at that college, so I got that degree for free. So even that, I was very fortunate that my parents, did that. So, well, what happened? The traumatic thing that flipped my world upside down was April 4th, 2011. I was 22 years old. I was in class. I had a test that day. I went to school. I don't really remember what I was wearing, but I remember I had a black hat on. If you remember 2011 and the hats that were in back then, had one of those on. I had just finished my test, and my sister was blowing me up. My sister was blowing up my phone, and I wasn't answering. And I was like, I texted her back. I was like, hey, I'm in the middle of class. I'm in the middle of class. Like, can it wait until break and I'll call you back? And she texted me, no, you gotta come home now. And instantly I knew it was mom. Instantly I knew it was mom. And I'll get to that point why I knew it was mom. There was something that happened the night before. How I just knew in my spirit that it was mom. So I get in the car and I call her immediately. I still remember being on the highway, being on the phone with her. And she's bawling. And she just said, Mom's dead. Mom's dead. And I just when you're in that state of mind, you're just like, what? She's not dead. Like, no. Like, she's bawling her eyes out on the phone, and I'm in denial. I'm like, no, Mom's not dead. There's no way. I get there, and there's firemen there, there's ambulance there, the coroner's there, my grandma's there, still in her pajamas, my sister's there, and I just remember it just being complete chaos. I just didn't know. I immediately went into like maternal instinct mode. Or womanly instinct mode. Like, I took the lead on everything. I was the one who, like, everybody immediately started talking to for to ask the questions and get information from. And my dad later on, my dad was not there. My dad was on a work. Yeah, he was out in California. So I live in the Midwest. Okay, he was out working in California for 6 months, and I believe that he had only been there for 3 months. I think, when this happened. So he wasn't even home. So he thanked me later for kind of taking the reins and, being that person that all the authorities went to for questions and answers. And I just went into that mode. Like, I couldn't even cry yet. But then it was just like, I had a boyfriend at the time. My sister had a boyfriend. We both texted them. They came. All our family dropped everything and came. We had family who lived about an hour away, of some that lived an hour and a half away. They all dropped everything and came. And I just will never forget that day where, after all the authorities left, we're all just sitting there. We're all just sitting there in the living room in silence. Like, it was nuts. My mom was that one. Both my mom and my grandma were those family members who held the family together. You know? So my grandma was still alive at this point. My grandpa was still alive at this point. My mom was the first person on my mom's side of the family to die. She was only 55. She had a heart attack in her sleep. So to kind of preface that a little bit, she was scheduled to have a pacemaker put in. There's controversy between the family on this, but about that. But just basically, the pacemaker didn't happen. You know, according to my mom. She said that the doctor said that she didn't need a pacemaker after all. You know, and there's controversy. Some people, my family, believe she was just ready to go and she denied the pacemaker. You know, there's just all kinds of different talk. Because my mom was going through some stuff in her own personal life before she died. So, you know, who knows, she might have been ready to go. But we weren't ready for her to go. We were definitely not ready for her to go. You know, I was 22 years old. She was 55. And, you know, I had a long-term boyfriend at that time. So the high school sweetheart that I was with, we had already, you know, broken up a few years prior. So I was with the bad boy. The one that I ended up being on and off with for 9 years of my life. He is the one who I was with when my mom passed on. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys this. Me and my mom and my sister went out on a trip to go visit my dad in California just 2 weeks prior. Like, we had our very last family vacation before mom died. And I'll never forget that. It was the best time of my life. I hear music from being out in California, and I instantly, some Black Eyed Peas and Lil Wayne, like the things that were popular back then. I hear the song and I'm instantly thrown back to California in that trip. But I did forget to mention the thing that led me to believe that I knew it was mom. So the night before, it was just me and mom in the house. My sister was not at home. She was with friends or something. And it was just me and mom, and we were sitting on the couch. I was studying for that test that I had the next day. And she was reading the newspaper, and she just dropped it and went like this. And I just remember just stopping what I was doing. I was just staring at her. I was like, Mom, are you okay? And then she just kind of comes to and is like, huh? What? And I'm like, you just passed out. Like, you just passed out right in front of me. And she was like, oh, you know what? Your dad told me that I did that too. Because they would Skype every day. They would Skype while he was out in California. And she was here. And she's like, your dad told me I did the same thing earlier. She's like, you know, I just think I have like low blood sugar or something. So I'm going to go get an ice cream bar and go to bed. And I was like, okay. I was like, are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital? Like, I think you need to go to the hospital. She's like, no, I'm fine. I'm just going to go to bed. And that was the last time I saw her. So she had a heart attack in her sleep, and my sister is the one who found her. Imagine being 19 years old and finding your dead parent in their bed. Like, what happened was, my mom worked at Macy's. So, you know, with both me and my sister being in college, out of school, mom, you know, got a job. She spent her whole life being a stay-at-home mom. So when we got older and we had friends and jobs and things like that and school, college, she decided to just get a fun job at Macy's, like, you know, in sales. She sold shoes, she sold purses, she sold perfumes, things like that. So she was supposed to be at work that day. So Macy's called, and my sister answered the phone, and it was like 9 a.m. And, you know, my sister thought that was really weird that mom wasn't up yet, because she would have been up by now. So she answered the phone, and it was her boss, and she's like, yeah, my mom's still in bed. Let me go check. And my mom's boss said she heard the loudest, most blood-curdling scream she's ever heard in her life. Like, you have to think, like, that phone was in the living room. My sister had to go through the living room, down the hallway, to the back bedroom. And they could hear my sister scream. the coroners wouldn't let me see her, and the authorities, like the police and the ambulance. I begged and begged and begged to see my mom because she was still in that room when I got there. And they told me, no, you don't want your last memory of your mom to be that. I have, sometimes I wish I would have gotten to see her, but then other times I don't. The last fond memories I have of her are our vacation in California. So maybe it was for the best that I didn't see her. But, yeah. And, I also want to throw that out there that me and my mom did not have a good relationship before she died. I was dating the bad boy. She pictured me marrying my high school sweetheart when I was the good girl, the one who obeyed the rules, was a good citizen, no tattoos and piercings. And then I date the bad boy. I start getting tattoos and piercings and pink hair. I had a lip ring. I got my tattoo here. Now it's a full sleeve, but I got my tattoo here. And she just thought I lost my mind. And she was hoping and praying it was just a phase. It wasn't a phase. I'm still an alt girl. But anyway, yeah, I don't think she resented that bad boy because she got along with him. She really liked him, but I just believed that we would always break up and I would go back to that guy, and that never happened. We fought a lot in the last couple years because I was rebellious. I didn't do anything bad though. I didn't do anything bad. I got tattoos and piercings. I wasn't out doing drugs. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking. My this was the term back then. I don't know if it still is or not, but when you don't drink and you don't smoke and you don't do drugs, you're straight edge. Me and my ex, the bad boy ex, we were straight edge. We didn't do that stuff. So even though he leather jacket, long hair, listen to metal, things like that, we were still out, doing just normal kid things. We were not drinkers or partiers. We went to a lot of local shows and stuff because it was during the emo days, and so we went to a lot of local shows and hanging out at Denny's and Starbucks and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure if any of you emo people are following me, you remember that life. Those were good days. But yeah, so we weren't out doing drugs or partying. We were straight edge. We definitely were straight edge. So what changed that for me though was after Mom died. So me and my ex had been together for 3 years. So 2 weeks after my mom died, we had been together for 3 years. He proposed. He proposed. Oh my gosh. I get it. He had the best of intentions because it was an anniversary and he thought it was the right thing to do because a pivotal landmark, but my mom just died 2 weeks ago. Literally, the week my mom died, I was bawling my eyes out that whole week. The following week, me and him were fighting nonstop because my emotions were all over the place. Woohoo, I was a roller coaster. And then that third week, we were doing great and we were all lovey-dovey and it was our anniversary and he proposes. I said yes, but that engagement only lasted 3 months. So, because I lost my mind. So let me tell you what happened. I turned into a zombie at work. I worked in sales. I worked as a jewelry salesman, fine jewelry. I was just part-time because I was in college. And I turned into a zombie. I remember my boss said I would just stand there in the middle of the sales floor just staring out into space for hours. I wasn't contributing to anything. I was failing in school. To my fellow friends that I'm still my girlfriends that I went to college with, if you're seeing this, you don't even know this. This is the first time you're hearing it. I was failing college. I still graduated. I barely passed. But what happened was I had to continue to do summer school after I received my, when you graduate, your diploma's not in there. You get your diploma later. And I went to school for medical field, so we had scrubs, and I remember being so scared because all my friends wanted to have a scrub burning party where we would go and have a bonfire and burn our scrubs, and I was like, I can't attend this, I can't go because I'm still doing clinicals. I'm still not done, even though I walked down the, pomp and circumstance, I got my fake diploma in my hand. I'm still going to school to do summer school, basically, to catch up on all the credits and the things that I was that I missed, because I missed a lot of time in school due to my mom dying. So I had to make all that up, and they were allowing me to try to get, try to pass, and I did. I probably barely did. I don't know, barely. But I was like, I can't burn my scrubs. I still need them. But I was so embarrassed. Now looking back at it, they would have understood. They would have been like, yeah, your mom died. No wonder. Like, they would have understood. But then I was like so embarrassed. But yeah, I did receive my diploma and, you know, all that good stuff. But let me see. Oh, I refused to go to therapy. People, like, when I was a zombie at work and I was at school failing, you know, they were like, you need to go see a therapist. You need to go see a therapist. And I just refused. I was like, I don't need therapy. Like, therapy wasn't taboo anymore. All kinds of people went to therapy. But I still was like, no, I don't need therapy. I'm fine. Which I agree if you have God in your life. But I totally just lost God in all of this. I don't want to say I lost my faith because I still was a Christian. I still believed in God and believed I was going into heaven, but I wasn't living. My fruits weren't there. My works weren't there. I basically turned into a person that even my fiance didn't recognize. You know, we broke up. I dated his best friend for a little bit. And then I turned to partying, drinking, and bad friends. I'll go, the parts of the story where I did bad things will be another testimony. This testimony would be way too long if I include that in this one. So this is just the trauma that led up to it. But I will get into the nitty gritty, dirty details of what happened with these bad friends, with the drinking, the partying, drugs, and things like that. And the promiscuity, you know, I definitely liked the boys. So I will get into that later. But yeah, I really broke my fiance's heart. But he wasn't innocent either in any of that. You know, he had his things where his betrayal against me before my mom died. But we still ended up being on and off for like 9 years total. And every time we got back together, the ring would go back on and things like that. But when mom died, that ended it for a while. So, but this with mom dying, a lot of people lose their parents. And you're like, so what? Like, you turn into this terrible, bad person because your mom died? That's not the end of the story. What really, really, really turned me into this awful human being where I didn't even recognize myself anymore. And my fiance told me later on that he didn't even know who that person was. And my friends told me that too. I had a friend at work who told me that there was the before Laura and the after Laura. Like, everybody saw it. Boom, like one book over, new book opened. Not even a chapter. It was a whole new book. So I couldn't see it. I knew I was making unwise choices, but I didn't care. My mom wasn't around. Who cares? So what happened was abandonment from my own father. Daddy issues. No, I wouldn't even say it's necessarily daddy issues. I wouldn't say I have daddy issues because I really grew up believing my dad was a good person. I always put him on a pedestal thinking that he was this great, wonderful person. Now that is up for debate. But I will get to that. So my dad wasted no time starting to date. So we'll say that. So within months, like I remember after mom died, he came home. Oh, I should say, when he came home, he didn't make it home from California that day. He tried to get the earliest and the fastest flight that he could. He couldn't make it home that day. He got home the next day, and I remember me and my sister just running to him, crying our eyes out. Our life was changed. The first things that my dad did was starting to burn everything. This was when me and my fiance were still together, when we just didn't understand. Like, he was outside just throwing stuff because we had land, so we had one of those big bonfires, and he was just burning stuff. Just throwing everything of mom's on the fire, and we were just like, stop it. And, you know, it was like one of those things, like, he just felt like he couldn't move on until he erased her, I felt like. That was the first thing that he did. So I should say, that's for another time. So we lived in the house on the land, and after it was about he's, after mom died, he said that he was, he had no desire to date. He had no desire to move on. He was going to die a widower. That lasted a whole 3 months. He's ended up being on eHarmony and Plenty of Fish. And then once my aunts, my mom's two sisters, found out that he was like considering dating again, they tried to set him up with like good, godly Christian women that were beautiful, like these really pretty women that were interested in my dad. And he had no desire. He was like, no. He didn't want anything to do with any of them. He might have went out on dates with them, but he wasn't interested. Well, he meets this woman. I believe it was Plenty of Fish. I could be wrong. And they hit it off. She lived where they live now, an hour and a half away, or roughly an hour away. And I guess they hit it off on their first date. I'll never forget when the whole family, my mom's side of the family, and me and my sister, we all meet her. She's awful. She's terrible. We don't get it. We don't understand. We're just like, ew. Like, not only, I don't want to be that person to say she was ugly, but when I get to the parts of how ugly she is on the inside, evil on the inside radiates out, right? So she was not a looker on the outside, but his argument would be like, well, I don't care what she looks like on the outside, like nobody, I'll never do better than your mom. And, he just basically was lonely, is how he portrayed it to us, at least in the beginning, that he was lonely and that he didn't care what she looked like on the outside. They hit it off and they got along great. They had chemistry. What? Well, we quickly realized what a terrible, terrible human being she was. We would like, and this is very unchristian of us, but let me tell you, this is old Laura, right? This is old Laura. We'd make fun of her. We'd talk about her behind her back just because she was just awful, just a terrible person. But then she actually showed her true colors. Like in the very beginning, she tried to get us to like her, and we saw through it. They wasted no time getting married. Actually, before they got married, this is when the abandonment started. So in the house that we lived in, as soon as he started dating her, him and her got a house together. He moved out of the house with me and my sister. So this is just like within months. And so me and my sister live alone in this house. He eventually says that our boyfriends can move in if we want. So this was after me and my fiance had broken up and I was on to the next guy. The worst guy I ever dated in my life. He will be a testimony. Literally the most abusive man. Anyway, so he was living with me there and my sister's boyfriend was living with us there. And Dad and her got their own house and me and my sister are alone in this house with our boyfriends. Dad let the house foreclose. Actually, first he tried to sell it. And the first thing that she ever said to me to make me just be like, I'm done with this woman, was when they were trying to sell it. My mom liked that old-fashioned look where like ivy grows on the side of the house. Cheryl did. She didn't like that. I can't say her name. Well, she didn't like that. So she was pulling the ivy off the house, and she was telling me the story afterwards. She was just like, ugh, your mom and that ivy. Just like, I'm out there just ripping that ivy off so we can sell this house. Needless to say, I did not like your mom in that moment. And I was just like, who says that? Like, you're dating my dad? I already don't like you, and you have the nerve to talk bad about my mom who just died to me? Like, I was like done with her at that point, and they had only been together a couple months. Like, boop, done. And then she had said something to my sister about how my mom's cleanliness, because they were cleaning the house trying to get it ready to sell, and how terrible and how dirty the house was, and how mom couldn't keep a cleanly house. My sister and I had been living there alone. My mom has been dead for months. We were kids. I can guarantee you, if the house was filthy and dirty, it was because of us, not because of my mom. Because we were just like college kids living in that house. Okay. Yeah, because me and my sister were still in college at this point. We hadn't graduated. But the house doesn't sell. Dad decides to let it foreclose. And the second my sister and I graduate college, he kicks us out of that house. He's like, you're done. You're out. I got to get rid of this house. Okay, we're broke. We're right out of college. You know, I have a part-time job, which I end up turning into a full-time job. Thank goodness was able to get promoted to full-time in sales. But I needed a down payment for rent. My mom was a motorcyclist. My whole family is actually. They're all bikers, like Harley riders and stuff. A lot of them have given it up, but like my dad's still a Harley rider. But my mom had a bike, a Honda Shadow, and that got passed down to me. I was like, I am taking that. I got my motorcycle license. I still have it to this day. I will never forgive my dad for this. I had to sell that. Instead of him loaning me money, he kicked me out of that house and forced me to get an apartment when I was broke and just out of college. Instead of loaning me a rent deposit, he allowed me to sell that bike. I sold that bike so I can make my rent deposit to get rent, to be able to live, because I just got kicked out of the house. I never saw that part until like many years later when I was back with my ex-fiance and I was talking to his mom, and his mom was like, I can't believe your dad did that. I can't believe your dad did that to you girls. Like, my ex-fiance's family was very, very, very angry with my father. Yeah. So, and then there's more to it. So then after they get married, I refuse to go to the wedding. I don't want to go to the wedding. This is like literally only a year after mom died. Oh, I should throw this in. My dad proposed to her on my mom's death date. On April 4th, 2012, he proposed. And then that summer they got married. So, I didn't want to go to the wedding. He begged and begged and begged me to go. I show up in black because I'm in mourning. I'm being dramatic. But no, I literally bawled my eyes out the whole wedding. I bawled. I didn't make it to the reception. I left. I mean, honestly, I had 2 weddings to go to that day and an anniversary party. But I didn't want to be there anyway. So as soon as the ceremony was over, I hightailed it out there to the next wedding. Yeah, I did not want to be there. My sister went to the reception. I didn't. Yeah, I wore all black. I was being dramatic. I cried and cried. I was sitting up in that front row as his daughter, bawling and bawling and bawling my eyes out that he would marry this woman, that he would marry her. So we graduated. That was before he kicked us out of the house. He got married. Yeah, that was before he kicked us out. All this happened within a year, so the time, I apologize, the time frames get a little jumbled. So, really soon after that, he hightails it out of there and moves out to California. And goes and gets that job he had when he was out there for 6 months when my mom died. So, yeah. And so, yeah, that happened really soon after. And that was also something that my ex-fiance's mom was really mad about. Like, I realize now that the trauma wasn't just because my mom died. It was because I lost both my mom and dad at the same time. There was my dad that I knew before this happened. The dad that I put up on a pedestal. I used to say things like, oh, I hope I marry a man like my dad. He's such a good husband and a provider. And blah, blah. And then there's the man that I know now. I love my dad. I really do. And Dad, if you're watching, I love you. I don't mean to say these things to hurt you. He knows all this stuff. We've had many conversations over his abandonment. He swears up and down to this day that he never abandoned us. But he is notorious for abandoning. When him and my mom got together, he had a previous marriage for 10 years. He abandoned his 2 sons with that marriage when he met my mom. I don't think I even met them until I was like 3 or 4. So when he met my mom, he abandoned his sons. And then when he met his wife now, he abandoned his daughters. And now he, now in present time, has abandoned his grandchildren. So I'm not going to go into that, but he's not around. It's just crazy. So, because he's still with this woman. And things, everything, so, and he also abandoned my mom's side of the family. Like, there for a while, he got invited to all the things, all the family functions, and because they made fun of his girlfriend, he cut them all off. He deleted them all and blocked them all on social media. He stopped responding. He stopped phone calls. He stopped communicating. He still, to this day, doesn't speak to anybody on my mom's side of the family because they didn't like his wife. And she has since progressively in her age gotten worse. She is an evil, evil woman. I have never met such an evil person in my entire life, who is abusive, who is manipulative, she brainwashes my dad. And I just pray and I rebuke that spirit in the mighty name of Jesus. I rebuke the demonic, the brainwashing over my dad, the manipulation over my dad in Jesus' name. Because he's easily controlled and manipulated by her for some reason. Yeah, so fast forward to now, she hasn't changed. She's gotten worse. She tells, in her own way, in her own narcissistic way, tells me what a terrible parent I am. Now I know why your kids act the way they do. She still, to this day, 13 years later, still talks bad about my mom to both me and my sister. Sis, if you're watching this, I'm not trying to drag you into this. I'm just speaking my truth. So I don't want you to think I'm dragging you into this. You're part of the story, okay? I'm reading my notes here. I don't want to miss anything. But yeah, after California, then they moved to North Carolina for many, many years. And then they finally moved back. They moved back shortly after my son was born, like maybe a year after my son was born, because they wanted to be present in the grandchildren's lives. And her daughter got married and was planning on having kids, and they want to, be close to the family, but yet they didn't even move close to the family. Like, she wants to live where she wants to live, in her hometown, and she's still like 2 hours away from all her grandchildren. Like, it makes no sense to me. You move back to be close to your grandchildren, but you're not close to your grandchildren. But it doesn't matter anyway, because they both have since abandoned my children. So, I shouldn't say she has abandoned my children. I kicked her out of my children's lives because she's abusing my children. So, my dad wants no part of my life and my children's lives because of the abuse my children have endured and have come out. My son has told me the things that she does and has been doing, and my dad doesn't believe me or doesn't believe my son, and so he is now no longer a part of our lives. So that's, all of this is the trauma of, I forgive my dad. I forgive him. He knows not what he does. I forgive you, for you know not what you do. He's being brainwashed and he's manipulated. Like, I love my dad. I would wish nothing more than my dad to be back in our lives. My kids love my dad. But he, she's not allowed in our home. She's evil. No evil presence. Nobody who operates in any sort of curse, witchcraft. I'm not saying she's a witch and she does practicing witchcraft, but manipulation and betrayal and narcissism and brainwashing, all of that is operating in evil. Operating in curses and spells and witchcraft, even though she's not physically lighting candles or whatever. She's still doing the works of the devil. Most evil woman I've met in my entire life. Most evil person I've met in my entire life. And so, my viewers, I just ask that you pray for my dad. This word was not supposed to go here. It was just supposed to tell you the story of the past, not what we're going through right now. But if you're watching, please pray for my dad. I'm not praying for a divorce. That's not biblical. I'm not praying that he leave her. I pray that she finds God. I pray that she is renewed in Christ. I pray that she finds God. She is not a godly woman. She's a professing Christian, but does all these things that are not biblical. Not at all. She believes in abortion. She believes that men and women can live together. She believes in, what was another thing? She's like huge into the public school system and thinks like Christian schools are a joke or a quack, that you don't get real diplomas when you graduate from a private school. So she doesn't operate in any sort of Christianity. So please pray for her. And I don't say this to bash her or talk bad about her. This is the truth. This is the story of abandonment, of the trauma that has happened in my life to get me where I'm at today. But I've come so far, okay? Like, I have a forgiving heart. I forgive them both. Doesn't mean I'll let you in my house. Oh, my dad can come in my house any day. He refuses to. He has unwelcomed himself from anything that she's not welcome at. I get that. In a marriage, in a biblical Christian marriage, I get that. I understand if my husband is not allowed somewhere, then I'm not going either. I understand that principle. But not when your spouse is evil. They're unequally yoked. You know, when she's evil and operating in evil spirits, I will not let evil in my house. I will not. So I refuse to let her in my house, on my doorstep, on my property. And because of that, he bowed out. He refuses to come to anything that he's invited to. And I still invite him to everything. And he doesn't come because she's not invited. So we all know how that story is going to end. So unless you guys just pray with me. For my dad to wake up, for the scales to be removed, the veil to be lifted, the scales to be coming off, rose-colored glasses to come off, whatever. He needs to wake up to the truth. And then she needs God. She needs to be renewed in Christ. She needs to be renewed. I'm not like, that's not Christian of me to pray that he leave her or that he divorce her. I do not want that for him. I don't. He's had a rough life. He has. He's had a rough life. He's even said to me that demons have been after him his whole life, and I understand. Demons are presently after him right now through the form of his wife, and he doesn't see that. I understand him and my mom had their own issues. So many skeletons came out over my adult life between him and my mom. I understand. He went through things with my mom. I get that. Marriage is hard, especially when you are a God-ordained marriage and the devil's doing everything he can to separate you. But the devil got a hold of him after mom died. So if you all would just pray for my dad, that would be wonderful. And Dad, I still pray for you every day. I love you. But you need to wake up, okay? I often think that that's why I choose the men that I do now, because I had my dad on this pedestal for so long of this great guy, and he's human. I'm not saying my dad's a bad person. He's human. He has faults. He abandons people. That's his main toxic trait, is he abandons everyone. It starts a new life every single time. He just drops that and moves on to the next, and then drops that and moves on to the next. So I just pray that he's, that God heals him from that. I cancel and rebuke and I denounce the demons that have taken stronghold over his marriage in Jesus' name, over his life, over his wife. But yeah, that's the trauma story. I got so far until the very end without crying. But yeah, it has nothing to do with just the fact of my mom dying. It was my mom and dad left me that same year. Within 3 months of my mom dying, my dad abandoned me. And that was not brought to my light until my ex-fiance's mom said that to me. I can't believe your dad abandoned you girls like that. What kind of father does that? And I agree. I agree. And it hasn't stopped since. It hasn't stopped since. Things got better. I gave his wife the benefit of the doubt for many, many years until my son was old enough to tell me things that were going on and how he doesn't like to go over there. He refuses to go over there. He doesn't want to be around her. And he told me this at 5. At 5 years old. I didn't tell my dad this until my son was 6. And so now it's been a year now of this. Of him, my daughter probably doesn't even know him anymore because she's a toddler, so she probably doesn't even know him. If she'd see him again, she'd probably have no idea who he is. And my son does not talk about him. So he's hurt my son a lot. My son is very hurt. So, all right, guys. That's the story. That's the trauma story. And then, so after all the stuff that happened with my mom dying and my dad abandoning me, then comes the juicy stuff of the terrible road that I went down after that. The drinking, the drugs, the promiscuity, the, I don't think I could say this word on YouTube. I got graped. I've never told I've told very few people that, so that's going to be a testimony after this one. And very, very few people know that happened. And then something else happened. But anyway, and all the guys that I dated, yeah, Laura went down a crazy path. I can't wait to show you. I'm gonna turn some into like Instagram reels, like TikTok. I don't have TikTok, but I'll do Instagram reels of all the pictures of me in my bar going days. You guys are going to have a field day. It's going to be a good time. So I can't wait to get to that. I wanted to release this word first so you knew the story, the backstory of what happened before Laura lost her mind and went crazy. So I love you all. Thank you so much for being here with me and listening to this word. I'll see you in my next one.